And what I want you to do is just reach down and turn your toes into your stirrups and go ahead and pick your stirrups up. And we'll do a little bit of work with your stirrups and then we'll switch to our English rider. Okay, as you're walking with your feet in the stirrups, the first thing I want you to do is stand up and forward over your horse, right? If you look where her lower leg goes, you really want to stretch out the backs of your calves and let the heel drag into the ground. Anyone ever taking riding lessons has always had the words, been told, put your heels down, put your heels down. And the primary reason for that is for the shock and the bounce to go down through your hind leg. So as she's standing up here, leaning a little bit forward, you can see she stretches her calves out, and the longest part is actually that her heel, I'll always tell them to stick your heel back there so your heel's touching that horse's hind leg. So now as she puts her hands on top of her head, and then goes to sit down, I want her lower leg to stay pretty close to where it actually is. So go ahead and sit down. It will come a little bit forward, but a person cannot stay really balanced over their horse and would have a very difficult time sitting the horse at the lope or the canter if they let their leg get ahead of them. And ideally, we want them to have an imaginary line that goes down through their shoulder, their hip, and down there through their heel. And so anytime a rider has problems with their leg getting out ahead of them, Mindy, why don't you go ahead and stand up and forward again. We like to do this exercise with them standing up and forward so they do pull those hind legs back behind themselves and learn to ride in that position. Now go ahead and take your arms out to the side. It's kind of like you're flying like a bird. And just feel that feel of those legs being long and the weight down through them. And now go ahead and sit down in your saddle again. There you go. Now just to introduce a little bit on hands, let's go ahead and take your hands down without picking up your reins in that position where they would be. And let's go ahead and ask her to trot again. You have to remember that your hands are free and independent of the rest of you, and so just because you use your hands and start to pick up on the reins is not a license to get stiff through your shoulders and stiff through your hands. They're merely there to take the reins, and the reins are merely a backup to what your legs are asking your horse to do. So Mindy, as you have your hands down in rein position, let's take your shoulders and roll your shoulders up and around to keep those lower arms, keep everything nice and loose so you don't get really, really excessively stiff in your hands. We want them to stay in what we call, I call it home base, in that position out here, just kind of about the height of their horn, out in front of their horn. And it's slightly different if we ride with one hand, but they still need to be nice and loose and free. Okay? Now Mindy, take your inside hand and leave it as if it's in rein position. The outside hand, take it up with your thumb to the rear. And now that outside hand, let's take it and go in big circles with it, big loops. And now both hands back down in rein position and roll those shoulders round and around and around again. Okay, and if we stop with Mindy, and now we'll go ahead and come back with Mariah